The studio lights were searing hot. You could practically hear the cameras hum like bees circling a hive. The room was filled with an electric buzz, the kind of tension you could feel in your teeth. Joy Behar leaned forward in her chair, lips curled with a smug smile that had become her signature. Her fingers tapped the cue cards resting in her lap, but her eyes were fixed on one man. Senator John Kennedy sat opposite her, calm and unreadable. He had that southern stillness about him, the kind that makes you wonder whether he's about to crack a joke or drop a bombshell. But there was a slight tightening at the corner of his mouth, the only tell that he knew exactly what was coming. The live taping of The View was about to go sideways. It had all begun weeks earlier, far from the spotlight, in the quiet heart of Louisiana. Kennedy, a lifelong public servant and deeply principled man, had just returned from a town hall in his home parish. The old church auditorium was full to the brim that night farmers, nurses, veterans, small business owners, and wide-eyed teenagers fresh from civics class. He didn't bring a speech, he never did. He preferred stories, humor, and honesty. The kind of things you can't fake. After the Q&A, a mother approached him with tears in her eyes. Her son, Jason, had just returned from his second tour overseas and was struggling. With the VA backlog, they couldn't get him the help he needed. She wasn't angry, just tired. Kennedy had promised her, right then, that he'd bring Jason's story to Washington, no matter the cost. That promise would become the heartbeat of his mission. But what he didn't know yet was that his next public appearance intended to raise awareness for veterans like Jason would become the stage for a national confrontation. Meanwhile, in Manhattan, Joy Behar was reviewing her guest list. The producers had added Kennedy to discuss a bipartisan bill he was pushing focused on mental health access for veterans. But Joy had other plans. She'd grown frustrated with what she saw as Kennedy's folksy deflections and small-town charm offensive. To her, it was a mask for a political dinosaur. "I'm gonna take him to task," she told a producer the morning of the show. "None of that Oshak stuff. Let's see what happens when he doesn't get to control the narrative." Her motivation wasn't just political. A part of her wounded and rarely seen felt betrayed by the idea of America Kennedy seemed to represent. Growing up in Brooklyn, Joy had seen her share of broken promises. Her father, a truck driver, had lost his job during the Reagan years. Her brother had died from an overdose in the early 2000s. After bouncing around a healthcare system that chewed him up and spat him out. To her, politicians like Kennedy, with their polished boots and southern metaphors, were part of the lie. But Kennedy wasn't what she expected. From the moment he walked on set, there was a stillness about him. He shook hands with every crew member. He thanked the makeup artist twice. He even made Whoopi laugh during scent check. But Joyshi was sharpening her blade. When the cameras rolled, it started cordial enough. "Welcome to The View, Senator Kennedy," Joy said, with that trademark grin. "Thank you, Miss Behar. Always a pleasure to be somewhere warm," he replied, eyes twinkling. The audience chuckled, but then came the pivot. "Senator," she began, flipping through her notes. "You talk a lot about veterans and mental health, but let's be honest, your voting record doesn't always back that up. Isn't this just another PR move to clean up your image?" Kennedy didn't flinch. "Well, Miss Joy," he said slowly, "I'd rather be accused of cleaning up my image than dirtying someone else's with cheap shots." The audience murmured. Joy blinked. "That wasn't the script. But let's talk about that record you mentioned," he continued, pulling a folded sheet from his jacket. "I voted for the PACT Act to help veterans exposed to toxic burn pits. I pushed for funding to increase rural mental health clinics. And I'm here today because a mother from my district is scared her son won't make it through the month. If we don't fix this mess," there was a silence, a heavy one. Joy leaned forward. "Then why support cuts that would affect Medicaid funding in the same breath?" "Those clinics run on Medicaid, Senator." "That's a fair question," he said, his voice quieter now. "I struggle with it too. But here's the truth. It's not about cutting help, it's about reallocating waste. You can't fix a leaky boat by adding more water." There was a long pause. Joy's face softened for just a second, but the show wasn't over. A co-host jumped in, shifting the conversation to a recent viral clip where Kennedy used one of his infamous analogies. In it, he had said, "Trying to reason with Congress is like trying to teach algebra to a possum." The audience had laughed, but it had also gone viral for the wrong reasons. Joy jumped on it. "Senator, do you think this kind of language helps anyone, or is it just showboating for the cameras?" He didn't smile this time. "I use humor because it disarms people," he said quietly. "But if you think for a second I don't lie awake at night worrying about these issues, you'd be dead wrong." And then he looked directly into the camera. "Jason, if you're watching, I haven't forgotten. We're still fighting. Hang in there, son." The studio went silent. No cue cards, no teleprompters, just a man trying to keep a promise. Joy swallowed hard. The moment had cut through every layer of cynicism she'd built over the years. Later, backstage, she found him alone, sipping coffee and watching a video on his phone. It was Jason, laughing with his mum, playing guitar, smiling. "You meant that, didn't you?" she asked, voice softer now. Kennedy looked up, met her eyes. Every word. She hesitated, then added, "I was tough on you. You were." "Honest," he replied. "That's your job. Mine's to listen." For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. In the weeks that followed, something shifted. The clip went viral, not for the clash, but for the connection. People across the country began sharing their own stories of lost brothers, struggling spouses, forgotten soldiers. Joy invited Kennedy back 2 months later, this time to co-host a town hall segment on veterans' mental health. It was raw, powerful, and more than anything real. Kennedy kept his promise. Jason was fast-tracked into care, and the bill once dismissed as political fluff gained traction. It passed in the Senate 88-12. But more than the legislation, something else lingered. The understanding that even in divided times, two people from opposite worlds could find common ground in a human story. Joy never admitted he left her speechless that day. But she didn't need to. Sometimes, silence says everything. And for John Kennedy, that silence meant one thing: he'd been heard.